It is the Fantasy Sanctuary Best Ball Show with myself and Tyler. Back once again, Tyler. It has been far too long since we've done one of these. I mean, look, it's March, but somehow I seem to be late to the party. How you doing, dude?
Doing fantastic. It is so good to be back in the streets with you, Tom. It has been far too long. I personally am very excited to have another even-keeled guest to bounce things off of. The bandwidth, it's at its limit, so I'm very excited for today.
No, I mean, I was planning on raising my game. I mean, I was about to take my t-shirt off and start pounding my chest, like, really start bringing it. But yeah, it is great to see what you guys are doing with the Toxic Tower. Like, I'm very much enjoying them. I don't get to catch any live because you guys, stream at unsociable hours for me, but it's a great way to start my morning anyway. But speaking of, yeah, shout out Amiga. And now I've seen good old Amiga going back and forth on Twitter with Nez about the DJ Moore trade, and it feels like we've kind of got to touch on that from the start.
Oh yeah,
like this was such a hilarious trade to watch happen in real time on Twitter, because straight away you had all the aggregators and all the worst people on Twitter celebrating it, going, "This is incredible for Buffalo. Buffalo have absolutely done the right thing." And then the trade sort of terms start coming out, and you go, a second plus this and the guaranteed money? And suddenly everybody starts walking it back. But like, putting that aside, perhaps, what was kind
almost
of like,
everybody walked it back.
yeah, what was your kind of reaction to the trade? And thinking specifically for best ball, how did you kind of feel about it?
Well, my first thought was I had to laugh because I was like, of course they go get kind of the most gimmicky boundary receiver they can get their hands on. I slandered his name by saying he's a glorified slot guy. That's obviously not true, but he does need a lot of like manufacturing and route adjustment and window dressing to be effective. And he's not good enough for that to be, in my opinion, he's not good enough for that to like justify what they paid for him. It reeks of desperation, and to me, it signaled we as an organization, we're not done at receiver, but we're certainly worried about Shakir, who underreported. He posted to his Instagram a picture of like him in a boot, and we have no idea what the surgery was. And also like building the plane out of slot receivers and lowering Josh Allen's ADOT hasn't been effective. And so we're trading all this capital. And so to me, it's like we're out of the running for like the receivers we want in the draft, or we're not super thrilled about, whoever's there outside of depth. And we're certainly not in the running for the guys like Mike Evans, Pierce, maybe even Jennings, right? So like it signals one of many moves to come, but it feels like a lot. I feel the same way I felt about Joe Mixon coming to the Texans 2 years ago, which is like, what? You traded for him and you guaranteed more money than you had to at his age?
Well, that's the surprising part. Like, there was maybe it was like something they needed to do to get the trade over the line, but it seems like a little bit strange. And if, like, as Levernucky says, like, if he goes for 1,510, it doesn't really matter. And if they win a Super Bowl, it doesn't matter. And the Bills clearly think that they are so close that they have to make these swings. But it's just hilarious how their offseason has gone back and forth. And when you look at it in the zoomed out view, looking back to last year when Brandon Beane was raging against radio shows, and even like in October when he was saying it's not fantasy football, to then very much have this kind of fantasy football style approach of swinging on a wide receiver. I think your point about like it speaks to what they would be doing in free agency, because you look and the Bills aren't under the cap yet. They're currently like 8 million over, and when you throw in kind of effective cap space where you need to be for the whole roster, they need to shift more than that. And of course there's ways that they'll get there, but you're not going to be able to compete for Alec Pierce when you are stuck in that kind of position. You're not going to be necessarily able to get to Juwan Jennings, who wants $15 million a year. I did think maybe Mike Evans might be somebody that they could get to still. I thought Mike Evans might be somebody who'd take a bit of a discount, and maybe they're not done because, as you say, yeah, DJ Moore isn't a pure slot receiver, but he's definitely not a pure outside receiver. So they still need to work on that. They still need to get a lot going there. And now you've just given away a second round pick, which the second round has been a pretty good area for taking shots at wide receivers over the last few years. So I don't hate it. And I go back and forth with Bills fans because they're unbearable twats a lot of the time. But from a pure fantasy perspective, I mean, it's hard not to like it for both DJ Moore and Josh Allen.
This is good for everybody. It opens up the Bears guys. They were obviously done with him. Josh Allen and the Bills needed a receiver that wasn't Josh Palmer making $12 million a year. I'll never let you guys forget that. Surely he'll be good this year. But to me, it feels like a step down below what they did with Diggs, right? They went and got a quality receiver in his prime. And this is I think they're overpaying a little bit for a talented guy because they have a lack of talent, but the money they're guaranteeing him and the draft capital, that they need him to be much better than I think what all of that indicates. But from a fantasy outlook, my other thought was I don't have enough of him. I wasn't taking a ton of him because he was kind of a cap, cut or trade candidate. You're not certain where he's going to go. And he was fine for fantasy, but he had a down year across the board. Caleb Williams, not the most accurate passer. And that was apparent last year, even as he had a career year. But DJ Moore also didn't get any better in some of where his areas struggle with. And so it's I'm worried we do this every year with market stuff where it's whoever goes and joins Mahomes or Josh Allen, the price gets out of control because we forget talent does matter and scheme matters. And even when Diggs was at his height of talent in this Joe Brady offense, I know that DJ Moore likes Joe Brady and likes the scheme, but his best season with Joe Brady was a long time ago. And I'm real concerned about the player he is right now and just how not pass happy the Bills are, that I can't wait to rank him because I think you and I are probably going to be in similar areas of where do we put him, where are we willing to take him, but I don't doubt that the market's going to push him higher than that because it's Josh Allen's receiver.
Yeah, okay, so on that, so his current ADP before this was 92, sitting in wide receiver 44, and I think it's kind of fair that people naturally attaching it with Josh Allen, as I kind of scroll through the ADP, the first one where I'm is this the range, is kind of between around about pick 70 overall. Do you feel strongly that you'd push him much higher than that, or
no? So I think that's about where his efficient price will be. I think folks that didn't take enough of him are gonna. I mean, I've heard he's been going in the 40s and the 50s. I'm not shocked by that at all.
Yeah.
And to me, I view him kind of like Cortland Sutton, where I guess I take him over Cortland Sutton every once in a while, just because I have more faith in the true spike nature, the age, and the profile. And to me, this is a pretty flat range. And so to me, my least favorite statement I've made all day is, what truly is the difference between Jalen Waddle and DJ Moore right now? I know that Waddle that, but to me, that's the true ceiling, because that is where I go, two different sides of the same coin.
So I think what I was going to get to is, I think my range is definitely a bit lower, but I think that I could see people pushing him to around where Terry McLaurin is at sort of 45th overall, and make him a low end wide receiver 2, which, for what it's worth, puts him pretty much right in the same range as Luther Burden. But I'm not pushing him ahead of Jalen Waddle. Maybe if the Dolphins end up with Tyson Bagent or something terrible at quarterback, then that's a conversation. But I find it hard to want to push him ahead of Luther Burden, really. Would you make any kind of argument for that?
No, and in fact, I've had Luther Burden slightly ranked behind guys like Waddle, just because of potentially Waddle getting traded. But now it seems very much, all the reporting says we're not trading Waddle, we're not trading Achane, and so my QB concerns and my environment concerns about the Dolphins are pretty high. I've been pretty high on Rome, who had a very good season before, fracturing his foot, sitting 3 to 4 weeks out and trying to play through it, which is where I think some of the noisiness of Burden stats come from, and where Moore had his explosive games as like the only receiver playing a lot of the routes healthily on the boundary in games they had to win. So I don't want to discount like Moore was able to get those. Moore opens up so much opportunity for these guys. We know that they're going to run more routes. We know they're going to be more involved. I am not sure that the Bears don't just keep adding to the offense, though, right? I don't think they're trading away more just to be done. I'd be a little surprised by that, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But I agree with you that, yeah, I think I could justify, from all things considered, an ADP of around here. I don't know that I'd be taking him that much for that. But I certainly don't. Yeah, there's no way I'm taking him over Burden or Rome, because Stephon Diggs disappointed. He finished at like wide receiver 38 at a similar age before the injury in a frustrating, slow-paced, run-focused offense that, we've got no indication that's going to change, because the OC is now the head coach. So, I'm not going to get too excited, because it, philosophically nothing's changed. Moore has just come in. So it's good for Moore, but I'm going to be very price sensitive about it, because 50% of the contest he's been, between pick 90 and 105. And now the opportunity cost is going to be pretty significant,
Yeah. And the flip side of it is something that Levenucky's kind of touching on, like, just give the Eagles your first for AJ Brown and go win a Super Bowl. Like, the price for AJ Brown now is definitely going to be inflated because of this. I think it's fair to say, like, if the second round pick and change is what you're doing for DJ Moore, then it's probably going to take a more substantial package to get up to AJ Brown. The flip side of it, and obviously, my inherent Ravens bias, is that apparently the Eagles are only wanting to trade to the AFC. And the two teams, the Bills were sniffing around, but now this probably takes them out of it. It would be quite the swing if they ended up trading for AJ Brown as well. But it leaves the Patriots and the Ravens, according to a Eagles beat reporter, as the favorites to land him. Do you have a particular kind of lean one way or the other that you'd like to see AJ Brown if those were the two options?
I mean, I hate to offend the Ravens homer bias, but they have not exactly been a fantasy-friendly environment for receivers. And the one glimmer of hope is Todd Monken's vertical offense, and that is now in Cleveland. I
think the one kind of, like Declan Doyle, like when you think like the Bears passing game, it's kind of getting those crosses and getting those big body guys and like finding guys to run across the middle of the field. And I don't think the way that they necessarily would do that is quite suited to Zay Flowers. So I think you could make an argument they'd maybe need someone, but I don't think it'd make him happy on passing volume to play with Lamar, because it's still going to be such a run heavy focused offense. Yeah.
And to be quite frank, like, looking at how the last couple of years, both Lamar and May have played, Lamar is still very good. May's ability and willingness to just like chuck it deep to whoever. I mean, multiple dudes last year on the Patriots caught 40, 50, 60-yard touchdowns. I think almost every single receiver not named Efton Chisholm, did that feat. And AJ Brown, from a fantasy standpoint, would be like, how many times did AJ Brown last year frustratingly get open deep for big plays, big touchdowns, and he and Hurts just could not connect. So from that standpoint, I'd love to see. May seems much more willing and very, very accurate. I mean, he was a top 2, top 3 EPA completion percentage over expected, with a very fine to middling to somewhat poor receiver room. So if AJ Brown's going anywhere between Baltimore and New England, I would not be surprised if he got traded to the Ravens. I don't know that his ADP in the third round changes a ton, but if he goes to New England, he's probably pushing 1-2 turn.
Yeah, I think that's entirely fair. I mean, I think from seeing the way that people have responded to Ravens wide receivers over the years, even if it is new offense and things change, I think that you'd be looking at him dropping from like right down to the very end of the third round. And I think that Day Flowers would definitely plummet substantially down to sort of like the 65 range, which would be fun. Like, I think getting a player with that kind of weekly ceiling and that kind of relationship with Lamar already would be fun. But the dream one, yeah, as Amiga says, like send him to New England, reunite him with Mike Vrabel. It's definitely fun. Tyler, like we'll just go, we'll get into one more thing before getting into a draft, but like it feels like we kind of need to talk about the Alec Pierce situation. Obviously, we've got these wide receivers on the move. The Colts aren't able to tag Alec Pierce because for some reason they'd rather tag, an up and down quarterback coming off an Achilles injury who hasn't been the most, I don't know, the most constant, I guess, throughout his career. And Alec Pierce, you've got what wide receiver 38 is he on Underdog of a minute?
Wide receiver 39 right now, 78.7 ADP. But I've had him aggressively ranked because I've been convinced, one of the most two likely scenarios are Indianapolis signs him to the deal he and his agent want, and they cut or trade Pittman to make it work. And they tag Jones, or they tag Pierce, but realize like we're gonna fight over this franchise tag all summer. Our QB is we're gonna be fighting with the QB negotiation. To me, it always seemed like Pierce either took a deal to stay in town, or he was a tag and trade to recoup the two firsts they gave away for Sauce Gardner, like a bunch of idiots. Like everybody knew that deal at the time was dumb. And so I've been aggressively drafting him because I think he had a breakout season. It's not a fluke. What he's been doing well has been getting better, and he's still produced with really bad environment late in the year. And now he's going to be one of the highest paid, from a total deal, years, average, everything. He's going to get a fat bag in free agency, and he might end up on a very good team where I'm not as like, my only concern was if he stayed with the Colts, Daniel Jones with a throwing side foot Achilles. We saw how sapped Kirk Cousins was with that driving power. So my concern was, well, Pierce's ceiling is hampered for a good chunk of the season with Jones year one off Achilles. Well, now that it's very obvious he's flying the coop, he's falling in ADP because the market doesn't like uncertainty, but that's ignoring the fact that he gets to go sign a huge deal. And the second he does with almost any team that's not the Jets, his ADP rises exponentially. And I think it's going to be a really fun thing for fantasy because then they have to feature that guy in most cases. Could this be the next Kenny Galladay? Maybe, but I think what he does well makes sense for the modern offense.
So, I mean, how many bad landing spots really are there? Like, we can take the Browns out of this because they're over the cap. They've got a litany of issues. And yes, they want to rebuild their offense up from scratch, but this probably isn't the move for it. You could take the Dolphins out of this because they don't have a quarterback. Their cap situation is miserable. And you could probably, I don't know, say take the Saints out of this. They're probably not going to be able to make that work, but never say never with Mickey Loomis. Like, the Titans have been one who've been voiced, but like I feel like if he lands on the Titans, I'd be okay because the overall passing competition outside of him won't be that bad. I think, you could look at, I guess the Steelers probably wouldn't do this because DK Metcalf. The Panthers probably couldn't make it work financially, but you could make an argument with Bryce Young. It's probably not a great fit, but like I just feel like we're drafting him at his floor right now.
I think I do agree there are very few scenarios I can see that would make sense. That said, we see teams do desperate, dumb stuff all the time. So I'm not going to rule out the Jets or the Panthers or the Steelers trying to do something they have no business doing. God knows the Giants are doing that, trying to trade for trade with the Chiefs for a cornerback, right now. So I'm trying to be. I've drafted a lot of Pierce. I've ranked him, moderately aggressive because of that potential downside. But I think no matter what, like he's going to get paid huge, and they're more. I mean, the names I'm really excited about that he's been linked to are teams like the Chargers, the San Francisco 49ers, and then and as Omega King in the chat says, like Shaheed is not plan to return to the Seahawks. And that opens up a spot with Darnold.
Well, dude, like I've got to talk about this one. So I've just got done recording a show with Hayden Winks, which if not Friday, maybe Saturday, where we went through our free agent dream landing spots. And this is one which I pitched to Hayden. I said, let's put Alec Pierce on the Seahawks and see what happens. Because yes, they've got multiple guys that they need to pay. And yes, you've got this kind of situation where it's like maybe they don't want to have JSN and Alec Pierce on two top sort of contracts. But like if I'm looking for a dream scenario for Alec Pierce, give me the quarterback who just led the league in completion rate on passes 20 plus yards downfield. Like Sam Darnold completed 58% of his passes 20 yards downfield this year, 6% more than anyone else. Now, yes, Clint Kubiak's gone, but I think this is the way that Darnold wants to play. And the Seahawks have the fifth, sixth most cap space. I think Mike McDonald appreciates that division needs to be competitive. You can't rest on your laurels on it. And if they want to be serious about creating a dynasty, then they should go out and make some aggressive moves. And look, maybe it is a bit pie in the sky, but I think in terms of fun landing spots, like holy smoke, he would jump 10 spots in ADP as among the wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, at minimum, I think the certainty alone will likely make him rise, 10 or so picks, just because that the market likes certainty. That's what's going to overplay DJ Moore here, in the next couple of days. The second Mike Evans signs with anyone that's not the Jets, likely, a huge rise. I think one sneaky spot that I'll be torn on is, Vegas has a lot of money to spend, a new staff in total, Kubiak's vertical offense. Shaheed is an easy name to connect to that, but they could be aggressive spenders to try to have the most complete team they can going into drafting Mendoza, who, is going to play this vertical style of offense. And with a rookie quarterback and a coach who's pretty much said, like, I like the kind of run to set up the pass type of offensive game plan, though from an explosive standpoint, it's been very good for fantasy. And we've seen guys like Derek Carr, Geno, and now Darnold have very good fantasy ceiling moments. I'd be just a little worried overall about total volume and pass plays and efficiency with a rookie quarterback with, a target hog and dominant guy like Bowers in town. That's one where I think that's a more likely iffy landing spot, but I'd still like him for spikes. I would just acknowledge more volatility than maybe, the other likelier contending teams with a need at receiver.
Yeah. Hayden threw Romeo Doubs to the Raiders, which felt like a kind of nice mix. Would be one where it's like, okay, you could give Doubs a little bump in your fantasy rankings, but not massively so, and it kind of worked on a number of levels. But should we jump into a draft and there we go. Started the show, and he said that he just needed some level-headed calmness. And well, I mean, you got Toxic Tower member stream tonight, so just this calm before the storm, the appetizer, right?
Oh, that's what I'm saying. I just, you need a break. Bandwidth, you only have so much of it. You only have so much, blood sugar or blood pressure spikes to deal with. And, you just can't burn yourself out being angry and frustrated all the time. But also, the people don't always, you need two sides of the coin. You got Batman that kicks ungrateful little kids' asses in the streets at night. And you got Bruce Wayne, mild-mannered, charismatic at the party during the day with his UK constituents. So, it's all about doing business where you need to do business. Waiting for two in the big board if you want to join us here on live. I've been getting a ton of late picks, and that sucks. So I'm hoping that you and I can get a top 5 pick today and play around and have some fun.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm probably 5 drafts in on the FFPC Superflex contest, and then maybe 5
Right
or
on
6
5.
in 5 or 6 in on sort of other like sleeper related tournaments that Best Ball Europe are running. So I'm definitely behind the 8 ball compared to yourself on this. But have you found the top 12 to be kind of settled at this point?
I honestly think only like the top 7 or 8 are settled, and everything after that feels like open season. Bijan, Gibbs, Puka, Chase, JSN are a locked in 5. For me, I have Jonathan Taylor, Amon Ra, CMC. I'm not loving Lamb, aggressively ranked in the first round with Pickens likely staying and getting extended. So happy to talk about that with you. James Cook feels like the most fine, but I don't like it first round pick. Achan feels like the most risky, and Genty feels similarly risky with all the the running back committee type of talk. And so at that point, it's like Jefferson without a QB unknown, Hampton, big projection there, Love unknown team. Like outside the top 7, I don't feel super at ease.
Yeah, it does start to feel a little bit weird. I mean, I can definitely understand that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just the top 5, and then after that, you're like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the top 5 feels completely fine, and taking JSN here just feels like it definitely feels like a tier break down to Jonathan Taylor. Like, because you can make the argument that if Daniel Jones is dealing with the Achilles, that if he's less efficient, then it hinders the whole offense in a way that we've seen with Bijan Robinson a year ago with Kirk Cousins when he was coming off his. Like, I'm not going to make assumptions that just because Daniel Jones is injured that we see more volume for Jonathan Taylor and it's straight away a good thing. I don't mind him, and I do have him ahead of Christian McCaffrey as well. I think that makes sense given the volume of touches Christian McCaffrey had. And then James Cook, Ashton Genty. Like, it all feels pretty similar. Like when I did my way too early rankings back in January, this top 12 doesn't really feel that different from what I kind of felt like it might be.
Well, let me ask you, I'm really curious with all the Kyler Murray to Minnesota talk, it hasn't exactly made me more excited to draft Justin Jefferson. Like, we're talking slightly better peripherals than JJ McCarthy, but also like Kyler's not been the most fantasy friendly guy because he's been the worst deep passer 4 years in a row. And we've seen guys break out without him there. So, and the Minnesota interior offensive line is pretty bad, and he's a small guy. So it's like it feels better, but I don't know how much better I feel about the ceiling. But we are on the clock. Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, Chase Brown, Pickens, Nico. Who do you want to take here?
I mean, I'd still lean one of the elite tight ends, but I'm pretty easy on this spot.
Well, you know what? A wise. Some call him the best ball rock star after his article on the Rolling Stone. Justin Herzig, making every Best Ball Mania finals, once said, through the first 5 rounds, I kind of just respect ADP, and then I just stack and I correlate. And not that it's won him anything, recently, but feels like wise words for making finals. I kid, Justin. All the love in the world. So jolly jokers. But anyway, so yeah, I think JSN, Trey McBride with Malik Willis might be the quarterback in town, but it could also be someone else. And we just know it's not going to be Kyler. And we know how good Trey McBride can be, even with some regression. And I'm willing to buy.
Well, I think like this bigger conversation for sure. Going back to your point about Justin Jefferson and Kyler, I just think that like McCarthy was so incredibly bad on the layup stuff across the middle of the field, despite not being like Kyler was never that bad across the middle of the field, and he can barely see across the middle of the field. And that's where just, so many PPR and half PPR scams are built in that range. I'm good with, if you want to go double elite and take Josh Allen, I'm fine with that. But I'd also just be fine with Breece Hall here.
Drew Brees over AJ Brown?
Yeah, I think so. Well, whilst there's still that little bit of trepidation, perhaps, and AJ Brown did look a little bit poor at times last year.
Yeah, I've been ranking Allen like basically slightly with the Sean Tucker and Rashad White news. I still think Tucker could return. I think you feel the same way, just at a cheaper average price point. But I feel like pretty strong signal initially for Bucky, who have been kind of soft fading after a troubling year with a fun but not flawless profile, and not getting any discount on that doesn't feel great. With the recent news, I've pretty much got it Bucky, Jacobs, Hall with Walker at the front of that, but I have Allen ahead all those running backs because I just think with all those question marks at the position, you have none of those questions with Allen, and then 20 rounds with Allen. Like, I don't have to worry too much about a bye week overlap because, Allen's going to give me the power of advancing and elite ceilings and potentially overcoming the advance rate hit you'll take if you have a bye week, but then also getting to add an extra shot at, with tight end, we'd have an extra shot at receiver or running back. And I've been trying to make that, valuable add and not wasting 20 rounds on always doing 3 quarterback builds.
No, I like that. And it's, I wouldn't have been against taking him. It just kind of feels like when the double elite players through 3 rounds can sometimes be a little bit tricky. So,
for sure,
knowing you've got a better gauge on the landscape at the minute, I was kind of happy to defer to you on that one.
No, and you know what? I think Brees still has an exciting single week upside. He could easily be the guy you need in the finals, which again, 558, seat final, you're going to want some elite ceiling guys, and Brees Hall on a tag. I'm going to really go out on a limb here and say, who else do you want over Zay Flowers here?
Well, I was going to say that I'd rather take Devontae Adams, but now that he's gone, I don't feel like I want to go away from wide receiver here, but yeah, let's go Zay Flowers. How are you feeling? Like, obviously this is a couple of years in a row that running backs have been king and things have like swung slightly more back, and obviously it wasn't robust RB drafts or anything like that won, but it's been slightly RB heavier, and zero RB hasn't exactly been the king of the castle like it was. Are you finding that the wide receivers are slipping a little bit more, or is it still just as thirsty as ever?
I think it's a heavy mixture of. I haven't noticed too much of a difference except your classic zero RB bros mixing in more RB builds, but the market hasn't seemed to change too much. Underdog, the receivers are still slightly too high. You go to Redraft Rankings and you see that like the ADP is marketably different. We've got Watson, we've got Lamar goes. I'm going to do ranks so that we're not.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm looking at it.
I don't mind taking a swing on Mekhi Lemon, but if you want to go Christian Watson, let's do that.
Let's go Watson. Lemon's been falling a little bit with the there's been a lot of combine, everybody taking it the way they want to take it. I also feel like these rookie prices, and I had Rich on a few weeks ago, and he agreed with me that these rookie prices are kind of aggressive, given the guys that are going after them. And I tend to kind of agree. I think Watson has shown us coming off an injury and then improving in all of his peripherals, yards per out run, first downs per out run. Dubs is leaving. Jaden Reed has kind of been relegated in the offense to being, Green Bay's Josh Downs, kind of leaning more heavy personnel. Matthew Golden is, to me, a worse target earner and less efficient version of Dobbs. And so I think it opens up a lot for Watson going into his 4th year with Love and with the LaFleur system. His ceiling is, I feel like he's arbitrage JMO, but he's had bigger spikes than JMO. And so I'm excited about that profile and that offense because it's relatively cheap for how fantasy viable it's been.
Yeah, I think that Christian Watson was kind of one of my hits last year where it was like, I just didn't have enough exposure, but like he was somebody I kept bringing up and kept coming back to and saying, I don't think it's going to be as bad as like missing the entire season. And then he comes back and he looks pretty damn good for his part. But it just, and part of that was also because I was so heavy Tucker Craft that it was an easy correlation to make. I'm good with Quinshon Judkins, or I'd be fine with Jaden Daniels over Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts kind of worries me a little.
Quinshon Judkins worries me quite a bit, but if much like last year, if the only exposure I'm going to get to him is at his lowest ADPs, I'm certainly worried about the state of the offense, some of his lack of pass catching. He was explosive, but
offensive line.
Exactly, and they're not going to get to solve that overnight, being over the cap. Now it's Todd Monken and Deshaun Watson leading the way. It's not good. It doesn't feel good, but at these prices, if I'll have a little bit of Judkins, I'd rather Judkins over Scatterbo right now, given what we know. But I also just think that he belongs in a tier of much more worried, fragile area. But structurally, why not attack two of the worst projected offenses going into 2026 for our running back? What could go wrong?
Well, I mean, just quickly, my kind of thing on Jalen Hurts is we know Dallas Goedert's gone. We know AJ Brown could be gone. It just feels like that they would need to do a lot quite quickly to make that passing game really sing. And I'm just a little concerned on that. But I mean, I'm absolutely in line with you on either Alec Pierce or Michael Wilson. I guess we could take Michael Wilson for the stack if you want, or we can lean towards the guy we talked about as being undervalued.
No, let's go with the undervalued guy. And also, we don't know who we're stacking right now. And so to me, it makes sense to kind of vary the bets. I think very unlikely Pierce ends up in Arizona, and I'm more than happy to, come out of our first 7 rounds with, an 0-2-4-1 build. So through 7, we have Breece Hall and Quinshon Judkins. Picked up Quinshon, 15 picks past ADP. Famously, ADP in the way too early drafts is somewhat fake, but I have a hard time thinking he sinks too much lower without negative news, and I don't think we're going to get that until after this contest closes. JSN, Zay Flowers, Christian Watson, Alec Pierce at receiver. Trey McBride is our elite. So I don't feel like we had too much of an opportunity cost going McBride a little past ADP where we did in the second round, given how we've built so far. Would have liked to, scoop up a little bit of falling quarterback value. They went right in front of us, but I'm liking the team so far.
Yeah, it's a good one, and shout out the chat. It's good to be back. Very much good to see old faces and new faces again in here. And it feels good to be back in the Underdog streets. FFPC, where I've been doing more of my drafts and particularly more in the Superflex contest, it just, I don't know, the fun isn't quite in those drafts in the same way as it is this one. But no, I feel quite good about this. I mean, obviously there's nothing overly stacked or nothing overly correlated so far, but it feels like outside of the question marks about the offenses, which those running backs are on, there's plenty to like, plenty of volume, plenty of upside. What are you kind of feeling as we get to this pick?
This is such a no man's land range. I don't mind QJ at cost. Just for, the explosives. Michael Pittman, I think, is undervalued because, he's 100 targets. We've seen the ceiling be good, but Rico Dowdle, I think he'll be available at the next pick, but just structurally, I don't love Corum and Price at these prices. So I'm fine with either of these guys.
Yeah, I think I'd lean slightly at Rico, but I'm fine with Pittman, obviously timed out there. I think you're probably the only person I've heard kind of talking up Pittman as a buy. Do you think, are you kind of stronger that Pierce moves on and Pittman then gets the target volume in Indy, or are you stronger that he gets cut and just still finds a good landing spot?
I think either one, and both are good, right? It doesn't look like Pierce is coming back, so they can't afford to cut Pittman because then they have downs, and that's it. So they have to restructure Pittman, or they trade him, and then they're aggressive going for guys they can't afford more. And Pittman is eaten with every quarterback he's played with, including AR. This was his price and slightly cheaper all last year, where he was a huge hit before rising to the 7-8 turn. So to me, it just feels like he's going to earn targets wherever he goes. And we know he can play boundary. We know he can be a big body red zone guy. And it just makes too much sense. I think we just go ahead and get our quarterback here. I have to shout out Kyle Monangai falling at 101. Are you tempted to go Monangai here over Love?
Well, you say there tends to be a lot of ADP value in these, so I think because of that, I'd just lean towards Jordan Love.
Yeah, I think it's easier to get boxed out a quarterback these days than it is to, and especially considering I don't love Kyle Monangai's profile. I think this is more of his efficient price than where he was going, around the like Stevenson to Chuba range. He feels like the easiest pass of almost any player on the board at cost. And yeah, like when we're coming back around the turn, it likely no quarterbacks that we're gonna like much, let alone stack. Honestly, guys I'm gonna shout pulling up, but yeah, I think it's get your guys in this range because the opportunity cost I think is missing out on your team benefiting versus taking values that take you out of structure at the end.
Yeah, I mean, like it just seems a bit wild to me how many QBs are gone by the time we get to round 10. And I know we had this last year as well, where you were like, dude, be prepared for the quarterbacks, they dry up quick. But like getting down to Bo Nix, Jared Goff, like Tyler Shook, all by the time we get into round 10 just feels like that probably is going to come back as like the next month or two goes on and we're into BBM. Like it just feels a little too much, perhaps.
Yeah.
Particularly with 20 rounds as well. Like just let it breathe.
Well, and that's the thing. I'm not minding backstacking or kind of backing into some other quarterbacks. I'll just shout that in case, unless Big Booty 69 Judy takes him, I think Kyler and Malik are decent shouts. Darnold tends to fall. I don't think we have to take him here. We can certainly take him to stack. Running back is pretty dire. No one I want to really pull up here. I would not mind KC or a quarterback. What do you want to do here?
I'm fine. If you want to go Kyler and lock that in, I have no problem with it. Otherwise, yeah, KC.
Yeah, let's go KC. Let's give Tom. This is Tom's first day on the dog app. Let's give the man what he wants. And then I think that buys us a lot of time with the other positions to play catch up and not feel like we're missing out on some rookie upside with a guy who has potential to go in the first round, might go to a very fun team and a fun fit. I think we're taking Trey McBride. I don't feel the need to go 3 tight ends if I don't have to in order to catch up at running back. And I think that this quarterback range, we're going to have shots at names that are all fairly similar from a bench risk standpoint and a spike week potential. So, I didn't feel like too pressured to get 3 guys in this window.
How do you feel about the kind of running backs in the range that we're coming up to?
It's gotten worse as the fun guys have like the rookies having bad combines has not helped at all. And then yeah, it's gotten a lot dicier. I think at this point you just start pulling up guys you like because ADP honestly doesn't matter around this range. Because these guys are often what the market goes, I don't know what to do with these guys. And tight ends really usually like. So do we want to take Malik as the big spike and try to push Darnold?
Yeah, I'm good with that. I mean, you look, and Malik Willis has had 8 games where he's played 60% of the snaps or more, and he's rushed 40 yards in 6 of those 8 games. So, like, I think it's quite hard to move away from that. I think there's definitely some people who are probably a bit higher on Malik Willis than I am. I don't know if we're getting somebody who's got long-term future necessarily. I'm not quite ready to get to that, but I think that he's going to be a lot of fun for fantasy this year.
Yeah, and my thing with him is just it seems like what we've seen out of him, yeah, exactly, might get the Arizona pairing. Where I think he differs from Fields is that in the games we've seen, and it is a small sample, but in the games we've seen, first of all, the Green Bay O-line was not anything like very good or very consistent last year. Love struggled with it. Malik Willis outperformed him in those games from a rushing and a passing standpoint. His deep passing was insanely good. So to me, he feels like bargain bin Josh Allen as a fantasy asset, as an NFL player. When he's good, it's fantasy bonanza. And it's why I drafted Dart so much last year late. And at this price, like Darnold for the JSN stack feels fine, but Darnold was the most CJ Stroud, like unusable, like fantasy output because it was all floor games. I don't need floor in best ball at these prices. And Malik Willis, it sounds like two things different. He avoided sacks well, and his passing peripherals were not good, like elite. And with that in mind, it just feels like whoever's going to sign him, he's going to potentially get more money than Fields because he's more raw and unknown, and then therefore more leash. To me, it screams like Brock Osweiler, where like he gets the full season, if not 2 seasons, because we just don't know who he is, and we paid him a lot of money. And at that point, less bench risk, and I feel better about it.
Yeah, okay, so back on the clock, your friend J.K. Dobbins at the top of ADP. James Conner's probably going to get a job somewhere, but it doesn't feel amazing. I'm
also okay just pulling guys up that we like. So
I'd be fine pulling Rachaad White up. I think I think that he's probably going to find somewhere a bit quicker and get a little bit more faith, even if it's a lesser role than we kind of once envisaged for him. Like, I think that it's going to be defined enough to be plenty helpful for us for fantasy.
I think Rachaad White's going to sign for a contract that surprises a lot of people because he can be a 3-down back because of his pass catching, because of his size. Whereas J.K. Dobbins, like, we like him more as a rusher, but his injury profile is going to scare teams away. And the less money they give him, the more risk with that role. But I want a lot of both of these guys because I feel like they're the clearest clicks in this range. We have no idea what Connor's injury was, what the timeline's going to be. And the rest of these guys have become total dart throws on health, availability, role, etc. I'm comfortable continuing to push quarterback given where we've taken. I assume you're good with that?
Yeah, I'm good with that. I don't mind J.K. Dobbins here. I mean, yeah, it does feel a little revealing that the Broncos are looking for an upgrade, and given that he was their best running back last year, but I think he's going to find somewhere because I think he's shown that he can still play to a good enough standard that teams will like him. I mean, it partly wouldn't surprise me to see him go back to the Chargers and be the guy behind Amari and Hampton. I think that could work. So yeah, I think he's not somebody who's going to sign somewhere quickly. I think he's one of these guys who will be on the fringes of counting against comp formula stuff, so we'll probably have to wait until that deadline a month after the draft passes, and then maybe he finds somewhere.
Yeah, I certainly don't think he's going to be like a priority target for a lot of teams, but I do think a lot of teams that miss the boat on their preferred targets know he's a quality running back. And I think everyone knows. He knows, his camp knows, the teams know because of his injury history, he's going to come at a bargain. And there's no rush to go get him. And then therefore, but wherever he's going to sign, he's going to be effective. I think he's just poorly priced because he's been effective and the injuries have been fluky, and they're fluky until they aren't. He's still not that old. He still has elite athletic traits that help him get over these injuries. And ultimately, like, he's been trusted by every team that he's been involved with. And in a build like this, give me the points and potentially like a lot more work. I think Denver they're obsessed with availability and the next shiny toy.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. They need somebody to do a lot more than what RJ Harvey seems capable of right now. Aaron Jones feels okay. Braylon Allen, fine. I mean, Tajay Spears is the only Titans running back under contract, isn't he? Is Tony Pollard there?
No, Tony Pollard's still there, but he's still like he's a casualty potentially. I've been taking Tajay because like what we've seen from him, he's explosive, he's quality. He's caught passes. Dayball, like, I don't know if Tajay's going to get a shot, but we've seen Dayball as an OC and a head coach not care about draft capital and pepper running backs with targets. Tajay's earned 4+ targets a game with every coach he's been a part of. We've seen him be able to handle the full load. So just like a potential handcuff, but also potential role player with his game breaking ability. He comes off of a high ankle sprain last year and still looks so much faster than Tony Pollard behind a miserable line, honestly. I'm more inclined to click a guy like that who could give me one or two elite spikes than the Allen, the Jones types, even if he's, RB2, RB3. We know the course of a season, a lot of things happen.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Hunter Henry feels fine, but I wouldn't be surprised if New England looks to be a bit juicier at tight end. I think, running more 2 tight end sets would make sense as well. But I'm fine here because I think you can kind of bank on that red zone target work from Drake May. Otherwise, I just don't really get on board with Theo Johnson.
Yeah, I don't mind taking a slight faller in Henry because if those are our 2 tight ends, so be it. Fine. This range just sucks so bad. I mean, everybody here I don't want to click besides, maybe Surratt, the occasional Trey Tucker. But like I can make a case for and against everyone in this range, unshockingly. But it's hard to beat Hunter Henry. He's old, but his role, his offense, and his profile, it's what gets it done in fantasy from a touchdown spike standpoint.
Yeah, I think that there's a certain archetype of tight end where it just doesn't really matter, does it? It's like, it's the Zaka, it's the Travis Kelce. Like, you can be slow, you can be unathletic as you're kind of getting older, but if you're getting peppered and if you've got the trust and if you've got those kind of routes which benefit you with an OC who's good at calling them and a quarterback willing to make those throws, then for fantasy purpose, it can definitely happen. And time again, you just look back at the stat line, it's like, oh, that guy had 4 for 50 and somehow is now the tight end 10 on the week. And it just works sometimes, doesn't it? So I'm good with that. Tank Dell going there at the end of the 15th was somebody I was going to ask you about. Like, I think no,
I've X'd him out of my ranks. You know what, Tom? I want to tell you this. Every year I flirt with strong health stands, and every year I let someone talk me out of one or two, and I end up giving a little too much. And I've just decided, you know what? If 1 out of 10 burns me slightly, no one's killed me yet. And so this year I have X'd out guys that I am way too out on injury, regardless of price. And I feel fantastic doing it. And I hate to say that Tell going into his age 27 season with a non-athletic, elite athletic profile, coming off a gruesome 18th month plus recovery injury, with a pretty decently stacked receiver room with an unfriendly fantasy passing offense and quarterback. I just see no need to invest in him like that. I don't mind taking the Surratt.
Yeah, I mean, look, we'll come back to Tank Dell, but Rich is saying that Surratt's popping in all his rookie model stuff, and everybody seems to be loving him. So I'm very much fine with that one. But just going back,
Rich, this is for you.
No, not.
Just going back to Tank Dell, it's more just like I don't think that Tank Dell is going to kill anyone this year by not having him. I just think that there's still so much potential in that Texans offense for somebody to stand up. I like Jaden Higgins. Jalen Noel definitely didn't really prove anything last year, but Tank Dell, if he has the trust of CJ Stroud still, then I don't know. I mean, you know me, I'm a bit of a CJ Stroud hater. If CJ Stroud can get back to where he was when Tank Dell was out there and healthy, then that would be a good thing.
And people are asking where I have him ranked. This is where I've got Surratt ranked, and I probably need a. There we go. Let's do that. There we go. So yeah, this is where I've got Surratt and Cooper ranked. Seems like very good values for potential second round and first round buzz guys with really fun profiles. At quarterback here, I don't mind taking some Rodgers. I feel like after Rodgers, it becomes a little bit more dicey about finding a starter.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, like we kind of talked through this decision on the FFPC draft, which we co-drafted with Discord members. Like once you get past Aaron Rodgers, you're very much in a kind of take a big kind of hope to ADP at the minute. Like there are guys who will probably play, and there are guys who probably have bigger fantasy weeks than Aaron Rodgers. But Aaron Rodgers is kind of a nice steady floor, and I think it's possibly not been mentioned enough that if you take out Arthur Smith of the equation, does that change things for as a positive for Aaron Rodgers? I mean, they're already talking about bringing in another wide receiver of good quality to Pittsburgh. Like Johnny Smith's gone, so you've got less of the gimmicky plays. Like there is a real world where Aaron Rodgers could be 2 or 3 spots better than last year, maybe.
I mean, I think people forget that like he had a 4 passing touchdown game. Like when pushed, they could do it. And yeah, like Arthur Smith, the passing offense, the volume alone, like volume is so fundamental to fantasy points. That's just how it works. If you're not like you're so much more volatile and you have such lower floor without volume. Aaron Rodgers has a bunch of openings without Arthur Smith in town. I don't know that he returns to Pittsburgh. I'd rather him not for like all the Rodgers late fantasy bags I have in best ball. He's a sneaky dark horse for Minnesota, for Arizona, like a bunch of places where he like physically would feel and look better, and from a volume standpoint have better outs. And from like it sounds like he's gonna play, and the second he announces he does, but like he's had way better ceiling games than Kirk Cousins. He was not that far off in points per game as Jackson Dart last year, and I think it's underrated what he can bring to a fantasy roster. This is no man's land.
You like John James. I like Brashard Smith a little bit. I think people are giving up a little too quickly on him, but I don't really have a strong feeling on whether we could push it and wait on that one.
No, Brashard Smith is a slappy favorite name, so of course my quick fingers within seconds pull him up because I haven't buried in my ranks because I don't think this is a guy that's going to matter at all, especially now with reports that Kansas City wants to stop fucking around and finding out with bargain bin running backs and finally go invest, $8+ million a year. It's just a report, but letting Hunt and Pacheco kind of fall off on the vine and go away certainly feels like enough signal that they're going to get serious about bringing in a quality name to fit their system.
I think that's fine, but it's like at this point in the draft, like you getting some, pass catching work out of him enough to make it work. And there are so few complete workhorses. But like, let's say they got Kenneth Walker. We know Kenneth Walker is not going to be 3 downs because of his pass protection, which then just by extent just actually opens up slight bits for him. So yeah, I'm not disagreeing. I don't think that he's fantastic. He's not somebody I'd want 20% of or anything like that, but I think he's kind of fine at price when we're in these early contests.
So the question is, do we want to finish 3-7-8-2? Do we want a third tight end? What structure do we want to finish with?
I think I'd be fine punting tight end and just kind of like filling out, going up to 8 on either wide receiver or running back, probably on running back. I know It's a bit quirky and people tend to lean the other way on wide receiver, but I'd be fine with the way we built this one.
No, I was going to say, I tend to agree. I like how we built this. So going into our last pick, we're to 3-7-7-2, Jordan Love, Malik Willis, Aaron Rodgers, Breece Hall, Quinshon Judkins, Rachaad White, J.K. Dobbins, Tajay Spears, Brashard Smith, and Jordan. What's your job? You sound like an actress of the films. James, Jackson Smith, Njigba, Zay Flowers, Christian Watson, Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman, Casey Concepcion, Elijah Surratt, Trey McBride, Hunter Henry. Again, I don't feel the need to get a third tight end with these guys. Honestly, I don't know what that adds to our roster. So I'm very comfortable going 2 tight ends and just saying, who do we want as our last receiver?
So I'd be fine taking a shot on Chris Bell, the rookie. I think, anytime you can get these kind of rookies who aren't being drafted in every single draft, that makes a bit of sense. Isaiah Bond, someone that the Browns have talked up a little bit in recent weeks on a couple of occasions. So I know that's pretty grim and quite a low floor.
Anytime you can double stack the Browns. You got to do it, baby.
Yeah, Hollywood Brown is usually good for a week or two a year, but Jalen Naylor is somebody people keep saying is going to get a bigger contract than people should
I don't know that I'm
expect.
buying it, but I'm willing to take a few shots.
Yeah, I mean, there he
Yes.
goes. Also, I don't know whether a bigger contract is necessarily indicative of anything good at this point.
It's not, but in the 20th round, you take what you take.
Yeah.
I think we rip it on 3 rookies late, and if one of them hits, we've unlocked what we need.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Just going a couple of bits on the chat. I just want to go back to before you recap this. Schneid saying likes for new OC in Pittsburgh, super sneaky good hire. This is coming from a Bengals fan. Genuinely, I just think Aaron Rodgers needs a good yards after catch receiver. Like that's where so much of his work came from last year, and so much of it was Kenny Gainwell. Find him a good wide receiver who can hit the yards after the catch. I mean, DK absolutely took his yards after the catch last year to a new level. And then our good friend Rory asking, tell us why you love Jordan James.
So this one is twofold. I'll give the slappy reason is that all the slappies last year were telling me, hey, of all the rookie running backs, you're missing out on Jordan James. And while he didn't get the draft capital, his missed tackles force, his elusive rating, this guy is good at football. And then he ends up in San Francisco, and then he ends up, hurt and not playing. But then, and so I kind of just like yada yada. This is a guy that's probably not going to matter. But we know Shanahan just lashes on to guys, and anybody that gets a shot at this backfield is going to be worthwhile. We saw how hampered CMC was, but also like the line wasn't great. B-Rob is not sounding like he's coming back, and they've completely mothballed Isaac Guerrero. And so from an efficiency standpoint, Jordan James as a college prospect seemed interesting. And then Kyle Shanahan said in wrapping up the year that he's really excited about his potential for 2026. And then despite being a healthy scratch for most of his rookie season, he was ready to go during the final 6 weeks of the year, but there wasn't like a clear opportunity to mix him in as they were, pushing for the playoffs and like just trust the vets to do their job. And so, Kyle Shanahan speak of potential big opportunity, excited, liked what he saw. To me, that's enough for a 20th round click to take over the rest of these guys, and especially on Underdog, where it's like touchdowns matter.
I'm fine. Sorry, go on.
No, it's just like these guys are like late round picks in new regimes, or coming off ACLs, or haven't proven themselves. Jordan James could be the Kareem Hunt in that he's just trusted to be a grinder in an offense where he gets more opportunity, and then that's all that matters. But like that's really it. It's vibes and comments for now on a guy that doesn't just talk up anybody. Like Kyle Shanahan's very fine being rude about
Kyle Shanahan. I think like Rory's point, and maybe why some people push back, is like Kyle Shanahan loves a mid to late round running back, doesn't he?
Sure.
We've been here, and that's. But the problem is when they start getting pushed up to like round 11, round 12, that's when like life's a problem. But like, yeah, if you're talking right at the back end of drafts, I've got no problem with it. I think that for injury risk to CMC alone, like if you're not taking CMC, then you have to be considering as backups.
I took 20-something% of Isaac Guerrero last year. I'm willing to make the same mistake every year in that, hey, is there a San Francisco running back late available? I'm going to take him. What could be the worst thing that happens? But that's the thing, is like these guys are all going to sink. They're all going to like fall apart. There's going to be like 3 guys down here worth of shit.
We've literally got the kind of like Green Bay legacy quarterback.
We really do. I mean, it's all LaFleur all the time. So we finished up with a 3-7-8-2. We recapped the roster going into the 20th round. So for the audio listeners, we added Chris Bell. We only went 2 tight ends. And quite frankly, I think this was the move, considering we had to pull up Rachaad White, and we went until pick 140, taking RB3. We kind of were able to get the guys, the profiles, and the costs we liked at receiver. And so we decided, and then tight end felt very much wrapped up. If McBride's not meeting his cost as a second round pick, we're in a lot of trouble anyway. So just trust that even in the playoffs, like these 2 guys are going to get it done. I'd rather add a potential 20-point spike at receiver than a median 8 points out of a tight end at this range of the draft.
Love it. Well, Tyler, I think that one's us in the books for our first draft of the season. Long season to go. I know that you will be drafting in a couple hours over on the Toxic Tower for the members only. Make sure that people go and subscribe and become members of Toxic Tower because, hey, you're definitely not getting more obscenity for your buck.
That you don't get better obscenity for your buck. That is true. And I want to say, join the Fantasy Sanctuary members. It's the best bang for your buck because we bang you. I'm not kidding, but like the ranks, the Discord, the Dynasty Survival Kit, the Dynasty Rankings, Tom's write-ups, Tom's gambling write-ups, like the amount of stuff you get becoming a member for the Fantasy Sanctuary is so awesome. It's so good. We're doing a members only FFPC draft, as you mentioned, where we're voting on picks right now. We're going to do that all throughout the season. We're going to have members only Q&As and dynasty rebuilds and all the goodies that the folks are getting, including the rookie guide that you get for free if you're a member. And that's going to have, like, I brought Rich on a few weeks ago. Go watch that stream, the Big Board with Rich, like 3-4 weeks ago, going through his hits year over year from like just sleeper gyms he likes.
It's ridiculous.
We're talking like a 90% hit rate. So like, become a member. I don't think you're not gonna get a better bang for your buck than joining the Fantasy Sanctuary. And if you like melting your brain, but having fun doing it, become a Toxic Tower member.
Well, it's very kind of you to say, and obviously it would be nothing without you in there as well. We will be back next week. We have loads more content on the channel. Like I say, free agent dream landing spots coming with Hayden Winks this weekend. Myself and Tyler, I truly appreciate everybody in the chat. We will catch you very soon.